You know what's funny is that I actually paid off my mortgage in 2 years and 9 months, and I don't think I can ever really put that on a YouTube thumbnail title because that's not relatable or it doesn't even seem plausible. But, we'll pay one off under 5 years, which is what you see here in, this little calculator right here, paid off in 4.7 years. So let's go ahead and, do it again. You know, we just kind of, do what we always do, which is pay off debt using something called the velocity method. So let's go ahead and get started. And what is the first step to paying off debt? Okay. The first step is creating a budget, right? So you have your income, your expenses, your leftover checking and savings, and then you have your expense breakdown. So you list every single debt that you have, right? And then at the end here, you just have one little line item for your personal expenses not tied to debt. So food, gas, insurance, all that other good stuff, all of that stuff not tied to that, we're going to put in a little line item right here. And the whole goal is to see what your life would be like if you were debt free, right? So if when these all go to zero, every single debt payment, does your life turn out to be better? And if the answer is yes, it's very likely that this strategy will work for you. Where if the answer is no, that even if you were debt free, your life would still be quite awful. That would what we would call an income problem, right? So if you take a look right here, we have $6,100 of income and 6,600 or $6,061.45 of expenses. We have $38.55 left over. So if you ask the average person, like, hey, like, you know, you don't have that much left over. Do you need more money to get out of this hole and all of this debt? Pretty much everybody you know will say yes, right? And what we're trying to show is with this method, okay, that even with the same income and the same expenses, we just need to change the flow of money, right? So this checking and savings, all we got to do is just change it to zero. And really, the only difference between the left side and the right side is that the checking account is not the final destination of your money. Because the way that we're socialized into banking is that you get paid, you pay your bills, including your debts, and then you leave the rest over in checking and savings. So you might be asking, well, why can't people easily pay off debt? Because they have such a hard time putting all of their money into debt. And what we're trying to teach is that all you have to do is not save money and use a tool called a line of credit so it can help you not save money. Because all of this, if you deconstruct it, is literally just not saving money with the help of a line of credit. And if you don't know what a line of credit is, it's basically a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay back, and then use it over and over again. So if you've never heard of a home equity or personal line of credit, I can put my entire paycheck in, right, as an overpayment, and I can get that entire paycheck out like immediately. So you know how sometimes you have balance transfers or credit cards, and that takes like 2 weeks, or you know, sometimes you use like plastic.com to pay loans with credit cards, and that takes like a couple of days. Well, with this method, the access to your cash is immediate, right? So that's how a line of credit works. And what we're going to do is consolidate our debts into their line of credit so that we can immediately increase our cash flow. And the way that we know how to consolidate our debts is basically using a formula called the cash flow index. So what we do is we have the balance of our debt divided by the monthly payment, and we do that for all of our debts, right? All of our debts. And so what we're going to do is once we've done that for every single debt, then we kind of rank it or sort it from smallest to largest. And anything under 50 usually is good to go into the line of credit. And here's what we have to be careful of. This large number essentially just means pay the debt off last. So this is a 30-year mortgage. Now, why do we pay off the 30-year mortgage last? Because that's $235,000 I have to pay and only to get $990 back, right? Whereas I could just pay the auto loan and I will pretty much get the same amount of cash flow back than paying off the mortgage, right? And this is a pretty expensive auto loan, 45,000. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, 45,000. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take these numbers below 50, move into the line of credit, and how much is that? 5, 8, 15, 27. And I'm gonna sum it up, and that's $55,000. So let me just try this right here. So 55000, and then move it into a line of credit. And guess what happens here? Okay, we just transfer debt. This becomes 0, 0, 0, 0, right? and then we magically go from $38.55 to $1,816.05 of cash flow. So I know, like, when I made the thumbnails, like, oh, pay off your mortgage in 5 years. Actually, that's not the most fascinating part of the video. The most fascinating part of the video is I literally just took this income, and without making more income, this number literally just went up 1,800 bucks without making more money, right? So here you can see that we did some quote creative accounting with our expenses, but I don't like to use the word of creative accounting because I think it implies that you did something wrong, and we didn't do anything wrong. All we did was just move some debt into a line of credit. Now I'm going to address the elephant in the room, okay? And what's the elephant in the room is that if you ever try to go to a bank and ask for a line of credit and you only have $38 left over and you have a ton of debt, you know what's going to happen? They're going to laugh at you, right? And the reason that they're going to laugh at you is because banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? They don't lend money to people who need it because, according to a bank, people who need money are incredibly bad people, right? They are incredibly bad people. But realize that banks don't lend money to people who need it, because people who need money, according to the bank, are very, very bad people. And you have to understand why from the bank's point of view, because the bank is essentially a leech, right? And if the bank sees through the credit reports that the other banks have been leeching off of you and they need your life force, aka your blood, in order to survive, and there's no blood left for them, why would they lend money to you? Because they need the interest payments, aka your life force, your blood, in order for you to survive. But if you've given it all away to the other banks, then there's nothing in it for them, right? So now what's the final step? And actually, so you might be wondering, well, if it's unrealistic that a bank would lend money to you at this stage, why do you teach it this way? Believe it or not, it's actually easier to understand the importance of a line of credit this way with one real unrealistic assumption than if you ever look at a realistic person's finances. Because, like, this is a real life example, 99-cent paywall that I where if you want to join, or if you want to see this a live stream where I tackled this on, it's under the 99-cent YouTube channel membership. And if you ever take a look at this, it's a line of credit that's maxed out and 22 debts and $4.10 left over. And if I start to do problems like these, this gets way too overwhelming. So I like to start with the basics first about how important the line of credit is. And plus, if you were in this situation, you'd understand the importance of a line of credit. I mean, going from $38 to 1,816 would be the life changer. But unfortunately, banks don't lend money to people who need it. Okay. And that's essentially what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is take the previous month's balance, previous month's interest, subtract our cash flow, and then what we're going to do is take the average daily balance, multiply by the interest rate, and then divide by 12. So let's go ahead and do that, and then you'll see that income in, expenses out, income in, expenses out, right? And then after every single month, the balance goes down around that much plus the interest, and then we're just going to keep going down, and we see that in month 34 it's all paid off. All right, so 34 months, and then W55K, and I'm going to go ahead and do this, and then we have the auto loan, student loan, and the mortgage, and then I'm just going to go ahead and do this and put 34, 34, and I'm going to do this. And then you just see from the cash flow index that we have the order or the ranking of the debt we should pay off. Now, I know what the average person would think is that they would solely focus on this interest rate. Now, why focus on paying on this 4% loan than the 7%? Because that's how the average American thinks. And we're not focusing on the interest rate. We're focused on the cash flow, right? Because I would rather pay 20 grand for an $800 cash flow rather than 31 grand for $400, right? So this is how it works. It's about bang for your buck. That's what the low cash flow index number means. So what I'm going to do is move this auto loan into a line of credit. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm just going to do this plus 20607.15. And then let's put this to 0. And then our cash flow is now over $2,600, right? $2,600. And I'm going to go ahead and do this minus 2644.8. And I'm going to copy and paste. And then we see that, yeah, pretty much paid off. Month 42. That was easy. And so now I just put 42 months. And then that's going to be 55 plus 45K. So it'll be 100K. Okay, 100K. And then now we have the student loan and the mortgage. So let's figure out the balance of the student loan and the mortgage at 42 months. So we got this loan calculator right here where we just got to put in the current month. And now we see that the student loan is 29 grand and the mortgage is 217. Again, we follow the cash flow index. Now we do have to take into consideration the interest rate. If we have a loan with the relatively high cash flow index, so we'll say above 50, and definitely in this 200 range, we really have to kind of be a little bit sensitive to the interest rate. Like we're not moving every single loan into the line of credit. Okay. Now, given that this is pretty much very similar, we can move this into a line of credit. 7 to 8 is fine. So I'm just going to be a little bit lazy and just move this into a line of credit. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we can use pretty much a line of credit to pay off any loan. But the most important thing that you have to understand is that when you have a relatively high cash flow index and a low interest rate loan, then you have to do it in pieces, right? You don't do the whole shebang, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And then this is going to be 3109.23. And I'll copy and paste. And then we see that in month 52, right? Month 52. So 52 months. This would be 140K. And now the last thing is the 30-year mortgage. So let me just kind of show you here. So I know what you're thinking, right? If you're new to this, oh my goodness, we're using an 8% line of credit to pay off a 3% loan. That means the world is going to explode and, you know, you're going to ruin your life, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, the only way that this can go wrong is if you move the entire loan into a line of credit, right? So this high cash flow index, what does it mean? It means you get very little bang for your buck when you move your debt or pay off debt in terms of cash flow, because I literally have to give someone $212,000 only for $990 of cash flow. And what happens is that when we're moving this $212,000, 3% to an 8%, and we have very little cash flow, and that means we're essentially going to pay more interest than we have to, right? But one of the crazy things that people are not aware of is that if you just pay the loan in pieces, right? Just doing small sweeps over time, then the interest rate of the line of credit is very negligible, right? I'm not going to say it's 100% negligible, but it's very negligible. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I have this calculator here where all I got to do is just type in the numbers and then, you know, say how much money do you want to move from the loan to the line of credit as an overpayment. And basically what it does is tell me, like, even with the line of credit interest rate, what the difference between a 1% and an 8% is. So for example, a lot of people out there who are acting like, oh my goodness, 8% line of credit, you're going to ruin your life when you pay this 3% loan off, right? And so let me just show you the difference between an 8% line of credit and a 1% line of credit when you're doing $6,500 chunks, okay? So you see this 8% is at 16 grand. Let's go ahead and put a 1 there. And now it's 15 grand. Oh my goodness. 1 to 8 is literally just almost the same number. It's like a blip on the bank's balance sheet, right? Like, you think the bank really cares if you're not paying like 1 grand of interest compared to the 77 grand that you were going to pay if you just made the minimum payment, right? So that's why I say, yeah, it kind of matters, but not really. Okay. But here's what we have to be careful of. Moving the entire loan into the line of credit is a completely different story. Because if I move this into an 8% loan, right? You see how it's now 50 grand of interest? And if I make this into a 1% line of credit, then it's only 5 grand of interest. So yes, moving the entire loan into a line of credit, completely different story. Okay, something you have to be careful of. But if you want to still use a line of credit to pay off the debt rather than doing extra payments, because extra payments is a pain for most people, it's the same reason why most people will never overpay a credit card. So let me just kind of go back to my example here. Even though this mortgage is the very last payment, why is it that most people have such a hard time overpaying a loan? Well, whenever you overpay a loan or even a credit card, there's a friction, a certain friction in the flow of your money that makes it hard to get it out, right? This is why most people never overpay credit cards because yes, a credit card is technically a line of credit. Okay, it's technically a line of credit. But when you overpay one credit card, how hard is it to pay like other types of debts? It's incredibly hard. Now, given that this is your last debt, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But just speaking from personal experience, most people will never overpay loans. They just find it to be really hard. And that's why, if you're unaware, that's why banks give lower interest rates to loans than lines of credit, because the way that they kind of present it, or the way it's presented, is that um, they say a monthly payment rather than minimum payment, right? Because they just want to make it seem like it's normal. It's just a monthly payment, not a minimum payment, right? Whereas you have to think of it as the minimum payment. Okay. And the thing about loans is because they're a one-way street, it's very hard to get the money back. And not only that, like of course you have credit cards and lines of credit as a backup in case you need the money, but then what you don't want, okay, is to segregate your income. And if you don't know what that means, is that once you start using different debt tools again, everything gets mixed up, then this whole situation becomes confusing, which is how you got into the average American banking style column in the first place, right? And if you don't know what I mean by that, I'll just rewatch over and over again, especially if this is your first time. But I think those of us who've been watching the channel for at least 3 years, we know what's going on, and there are plenty of people who are in this situation. Okay, so now let's just kind of go here and zero. And how long did it take? Less than 5 years. Is it 4.5 years? Oh my goodness. Oh no, that's all right. All right. 4.7, so less than 5. And look at me just casually saying, oh, just pay off your mortgage in less than 5 years, blah, 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 9.3 years, and then we're debt free. Okay, debt free. Yep. And I just talk about this casual, like it ain't nothing. It ain't nothing. It ain't nothing but a G thing. Actually, what is that from? It's probably from music that I never listened to growing up as a kid. Ain't nothing but a G thing? Is that how they say it? Oh, is that from Dr. Dre? I didn't know that. What did I listen to when I was growing up? Uh, was that it? Yeah, I think I listened. The only Dr. Dre I listened to for a brief time was this. All right. Well, let me just kind of go back here. All right, so 9.03 years debt free. Okay, 9.03 years debt free. And by the way, wasn't this guy on like steroids or something? Dr. Dre. Yeah, him and Carrot Top. You know what I mean? Like, oh man. Yeah. Remember when, yeah, y'all remember when Carrot Top was on the juice? What's up? Yeah. What's up with people? Why can't people just go natty? Go natty, I love natty. I love the organic, natural people and food. Okay. And by the way, do you know that there's a restaurant called Organico? Organico? Everything's organic. Everything's organic. I don't think they even have that in Atlanta, but it's in California. Anyways, I don't even know why I'm blabbing. Just because yeah, just because I've done this so many times, and the idea of paying off a mortgage in under 5 years is so normal to me that I just don't get excited by it. It's like being excited about speaking your own native language. Maybe other people might be really impressed, if they're from another country, like just like here, like if you're from here and you speak Chinese, and you're not from Chinese origin, then it's like, ooh, it's impressive. You know what? I know I'm rambling on and on, but I remember I just saw a news story about someone from like the Cowboys speaking Japanese, and that basically gave that person um Yeah, Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders' Japanese skills led to an unexpected World Cup opportunity. So it's kind of like, so just back to my point, the reason why I don't get too excited about this is because I've done it so many times that the novelty is gone, right? Like the novelty is completely gone when I've done this. But, it's similar to how like you may not be amazed by how well you speak your native language, but someone else is going to be amazed if they're like from another country. You know what I'm saying? I know it's not directly tied to this, but it's what I'm talking about when the news is willing to do a story about like Japanese or Kentucky cheerleader. Actually, she's from Kentucky, but she cheers for the Dallas Cowboys. Look, Japanese skills lead to FIFA because there's a bit of novelty to it. But once you get good, it's like, oh, whatever. Whatever. Okay. All right. Well, enough babbling for today, folks. I'm at the 20-minute mark. Have a great day. This is Korean Mentorship, and I'll see you in the next video.